really led to a lot of internal discussion here on how to approach doing that. And so that what's in what state API grew a bit from the input we got last time. And so there's this idea that from within an alarm instance, within the logic that you want to have it inserted at a certain point, you can say, okay, I'm in this state, but wait, I want to see, is there another peer alarm instance going on that's looking at the same node on a previous row or a similar row, or and what data did I have leading me to this state? Do I want to retreat a state, or can I search back and find that, oh, there was a trap with a certain amount of data, and what was the timestamp for that? How far back in time was that? So there's been a lot of thought on how to increase the API so that it can help address that concern from last time. Being able to make use of that data that the server has brought in and cached, and allowing your logic to be able to see that and find it in a way that is useful. So I'm winding on a bit long, but it was a tremendous question last time. I'm really very pleased with that. That it's coming up time where it's far enough ahead of the delivery on the what's in what state that it can be enfolded in. So I feel that that's been a great use already of the thoughts that we can get going on with this council that we have.
Wonderful, wonderful, Greg. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Not, that essentially what Greg said is the case, and we've heard this before over the years, where having the ability to see into the server and make use of that data is, the data's there, why can't we get at it kind of thing. And that's really the genesis of what we're calling what's in what state. And, it's coming. So if anybody else, has any feedback, whether you want to talk about it now or send us an email, we're definitely at a point where it's this is the time to bring that up. And like we said last time, being able to definitively see those, if you look at the client, you can see, like we talked last time, if you look at the nav tree, you see what's in what state, but that's it. You can just see it. You can't access that data, and that's all, really what we're talking about with this what's in what state. I want to know how many things are in a given state. Is a certain node in a given state at any point along the flow of a given, state diagram? I may want to know these things, and certainly externally to drive things like real-time dashboards and so forth. That's from that topic. The topic about topology and maps and things, I think, as I recall last time, we did talk about, today we do have a mapping capability within the dashboard component. However, it's simply a matter of taking whatever known managed objects that I have, and I can either logically, map them kind of manually, or I can tag them with lat and long and have them, map that way. From an actual topology view, this is something, we've heard over time, and really in order to do it, you need a discovery mechanism. So that's where we've kind of gotten to the point to say, is this really something that we should do? Honestly, I'd love some feedback if anybody knows of or has heard of some sort of discovery algorithm that will actually work in this day and age. I know that there are things that do, routing table sweeps and so on. I really feel like this is something we should be probably partnering with someone who is probably further along than we are, because we'd be starting from the ground up to do a whole discovery and then a topology mapping type of thing. one product that we've heard of and I've seen is called NetBrain. I don't know if anyone has had any experience with that or looked at
Yeah,
that.
we at WoW use it extensively. It's a decent product if you're happy to live in the Visio world. It outputs Visio files, which is nice. Its internal file structure is its own, though, and is not really usable by anything else, but it will export a Visio.
Hmm. So do you know if it has any integration capability? Could we use at least things like parent-child relationships or anything like that? I wonder if we could extract that. That's really the only thing that we have currently native to the
I mean,
product.
it has an excellent discovery mechanism, and it maintains its own internal database, and it draws relationships between nodes and interfaces, etc. I'm not sure how you would extract that data because it's intended to be used internally or to be exported as a map file. But the data's there. So, I mean, maybe, working with the NetBrain company, you guys could come up with some sort of, and they may have an API that I'm just unaware of as well. I mean, again, we use them to generate map files. I will tell you that the one thing that we have run into with them, at least at this point, is their support for variety of nodes is limited. It took them, they supported Cisco, they kind of supported Juniper, and they absolutely did not support Alcatel. Now they are supporting Cisco, almost completely supporting Juniper, and sort of kind of supporting Alcatel a couple years later. But, we have a lot of other gear in the network, and some of it, if it's Cisco enough like, then it kind of works. Like, they're not horrible with Brocade, etc. But, anybody that has a unique node type that acts kind of in its own way, it kind of gets lost. It'll start drawing relationships that don't exist, or it won't draw relationships that do exist, etc.
Okay. Well, this very thing about intaking Visio maps came up last time. So either we can look at that data file or look to see how they're emitting this, and take that content and whether it's we'll just see what the per element data that comes through and within that Visio map is, and hopefully it's enough.
If you want an example of if you want an example of a file of a Visio output, just fire me an email so that I don't forget, and I'll spit one out this afternoon and send it over, and you guys can at least see what their Visio output looks like. It's a pretty detailed output if you zoom out properly and give it enough room to fill in data.
Okay.
I mean, it gives you routing protocol information and OSPF or ISIS areas or IDs. BGP session information, IP and MAC address information.
Okay.
That could be interesting. That could be intriguing to look at to see how much or little they output based upon, like you said, about some of the device types they handle well and some not. So we can see that variance then in there.
Definitely will take this as an action point. And also check out NetBrain. Any other points on the recap from last time anyone wants to cover? Open.
I would mention another discovery mechanism that is open source and is pretty complete and has a standardized output format. Have you tried or played with NetDisco?
No, I have not.
So it has a nice discovery mechanism. It doesn't really map. It creates a data output. And a lot of people use it for integration, for example, crawling a network, discovering new nodes, and populating NMS systems. It actually has a for example, example scripts on how to to populate for it populates. I don't know. There's a couple of things as well as Rancid. So it'll populate Rancid with scripts that it comes with. It'll populate a few other systems with example scripts that it comes with. But it's kind of designed as just an open source free network discovery tool. It does not discover stuff through NAT very well, but beyond that, it does an excellent just regular network discovery.
Okay. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah. Any other points before we move on to the next housekeeping topic and then hand over to Mike? Okay. Before I hand it over to Mike, there's one housekeeping topic which I want to bring it up to, Dex and Manjul and James. There was a point raised internally. Right now we are meeting every month, on fourth Wednesday. Is this the right frequency? Or do we need to do once every 2 months or 3 months? I'm just putting it for discussion. If you think it's the right frequency, we would continue, because we don't want to come across as, they're taking up an hour and a half every month. Any concerns, please let me know here on the call or just email me. We want to share with you all the things that are happening. There's a lot of activities that are happening, and as we go through this call, you will understand. So the next area we are going to move is to what we call internally as connectors, and Mike will go through all of that. Mike?
Yes, we talked about the last time how we sort of see Nerve Center gravitating higher up in the stack, so to speak, where we're maybe not in all cases talking directly to network elements or devices or whatever you want to call it, where Nerve Center seems to be finding a place above other systems and taking in data and running it through behavior models where the data is not necessarily SNMP at all. And, in our new sales efforts, finding new prospects, we're having lots of discussions with all sorts of different companies and many different verticals, and even some of our existing customers. And we're finding more and more that this kind of concept is being validated, at least to us, and that we're actually getting feedback on some of the different other types of, let's call it, messaging formats or protocols. And we've actually launched an effort, as I believe we've talked about. We have a group that we're working with that is sort of an offshore team that we can expand and contract as we need to take on various development efforts. And one of these things, we're basically internally calling it the connectors. And basically it's kind of like adding blades to a Swiss Army knife, where we see the need to be able to take in a message format and then be able to translate that into sort of a common event record, or really in our case, you could call it a Nerve Center trigger format, because ultimately we want to take in the message and fire a trigger into Nerve Center that we can now, move along within a behavior model. So now to talk, even 4 weeks ago, this was kind of all conceptual, but we've actually gotten to the point where we've got some working prototypes of these things. I don't really have anything to show because it's not really something viewable per se, but I can say that the first few that we've actually got in a working prototype mode, the first one is actually being able to receive a URL post. We actually found a requirement from a prospect that we're talking to integrate with another management product that is actually monitoring web application performance. And this thing produces alerts, and it has a number of very specific outputs that you can send to, very, very specific other types of systems like ticketing systems or chat type systems. But the two generic outputs that it had were email and this URL post. So we took that on, and our team, our offshore team, basically found a component. It's an open source component called LogStash. I don't know if any of you have heard of it or used it, but essentially you're able to take and use various plugins that they've already built that receive some of these different messaging formats. And then on the back end, we can use our current Perl API to generate a trigger based on the data that comes in. So essentially, if we get an alert type of a message from this this product that says there's slow response or some other type of message, we can break it down into the pieces that are in that that URL post, and then fire the trigger on the back end. And it works very well. So obviously the next step is to find other protocols that will work with this, that are relevant, that are going to have broader applicability. But then the other piece is, okay, we built it very specific for this web post coming from this product. We ultimately want to have something in the middle, so to speak, that allows you to configure the fields of data that are coming in so that you can decide which pieces of data you want to put into that fire trigger. Obviously, you want to pull out the managed node, you want to pull out the timestamp, you want to pull out perhaps what is it that I was monitoring. You want to pull out any other relevant information, maybe put it into var binds. So that's the piece that we're looking at now. But in the interim, we did do the URL post. We're looking at syslog, the email, so that a received email into a specific mailbox can be parsed out and turned into a trigger. The other one that we're talking to one customer about is an Apache product called Kafka, which is a kind of a next generation messaging bus, like an MQ type of message layer, which makes really very good sense to integrate with something like that, not only inbound but outbound, being able to post something back onto that message bus after we process it through a behavior model. Another one, and again, I'm going to ask for anybody that's using any of these other protocols or thinking about it. Another one we've heard and talked about is called protocol buffers, which is actually something that Google has been developing or has developed. Any thoughts on that? Anyone? First of all, does that make sense? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Or do you have any thoughts on any of those protocols or message formats I mentioned, or even any others? No.
Wow.
No.
So,
Go ahead, please.
so I was, we are looking at something that I guess could integrate with this, based on what you said, if my understanding of it is correct. Right now, we're populating a lot of systems with data that we pull using Nerve Center. but one of our utilities goes out if something is detected and collects a great deal of data on its own instantaneously to populate a display that people are looking at to try to determine what caused the problem that Nerve Center saw. And there was a thought that maybe we could make API calls against Nerve Center to have Nerve Center go out and collect this additional data, as opposed to building an engine to do the instantaneous data collection. And you know, the functionality, I guess it wasn't really clear yet how to do that, how to say, hey, go pull this node and this node and this node and this node and collect this specific data on those nodes right now and hand it back over the API, as opposed to going through a state model or anything like that. And if that were something that could be done through an API, I know that, you know, we would really like to limit the number of well, A, the amount of code that we're writing, and B, the number of devices that have access to poll our network. Right. So that's something that may integrate with what you're talking about as far as an API.
Right. I mean, that's a little different, but it is certainly something that we've talked about over the years. It's kind of like abstracting our polar engine and allowing other systems to drive it, to tell it to go get data and bring it back. And actually, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, from our standpoint as a business, you know, in addition to helping our current customers, if we were to do that, I mean, you know, we're not, you know, obviously we're biased, but we kind of think we've got a pretty darn good, efficient polling engine that is not intrusive. It doesn't go out and just massively walk every device like we see some other products do. We very specifically, very surgically go and get specific pieces of data. To have an API that allows essentially a third-party product to just drive the polling engine makes sense. It is a little different than what I was just talking about, but it could certainly fold into that very same concept.
Well, kind of where I thought it would integrate maybe is we use a lot of, for example, SOAP or just basically, you know, HTTP put type requests to transfer requests like that around throughout our different internal systems, just because it's a really easy way of having multiple tools that different developers have written work together for us. And if you were saying, hey, well, we're looking at maybe putting together this type of interface where you could send in these type of requests, then, you know, that makes our life a little bit easier than right now. Some of the stuff that we're doing, you know, we have to basically, you know, send a shell request to the server to do.
Yeah.
If we could, you know, directly send in a web-based request, it would make life a lot simpler.
I mean, essentially what we're building with this post type of thing could do something like that, because it would receive a message and say, well, here's a node, here's a MIB object, and or an OID, and then Nerve Center could receive that, fire a trigger to go up and do the poll, but then it's a matter of taking the data and bringing it back out. That's the piece that we don't have right now. But like I said,
but if you're making a post request, or if you're sending out a post, you can wait, and the reply to the post, I mean, depending on how big your poll is and how long you're waiting, the reply from the post can contain the data, the output. Right? I mean, we do that. In fact, that's largely, we do a lot of that going out of Nerve Center now. a lot of our polls, a lot of our subroutines will make a post request out to one of our APIs and wait for a data return.
Okay, yeah, and we're doing the same with the web service that we have. A post actually does a write to a database for the dashboard. But what you're saying, and we just don't have we'd have to build that piece that would be able to, bring the data back. And
is that what you were talking about, though? 'Cause it sounded very much like that was kind of what you were proposing in that.
What we were proposing is receiving data to be driven through behavior models and then have another result come out.
Mike, my suggestion here is that looks like there's definitely a need for James, and looks like that we are kind of close and we may be missing a piece. Why don't you take it offline with James, and then we can report back in the next call, but take it offline with James and see what he's looking for and see how we can service him.
Yeah, we can certainly talk more about it. But I'm very interested. I do know exactly what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense to create that capability. Absolutely, we can talk about it some more.
Please, I don't want to hold the entire call on this because you want to understand completely. We want to understand what James is asking for. You have a good understanding. Then we can sort it out. Manjul, Dex, you have any other comments on this? That said, James, definitely Mike will get in touch with you. So that said, moving on to the next topic, unless Mike, you have anything else to add?
No, that was it. I was just talking about some of the various protocols we're looking at using as inputs to drive models, and the log stash piece that we're using.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And moving on, it's Greg's time, and he's very excited about showing what she has. And Greg, you are the presenter.
I am the presenter already. Wow, that is scary. All right, very good. Let me start off with...
hold on a second, Greg. I want to make sure everyone is on the GoToMeeting website, web portion, so you can also see it after this call. It's needed. We would be posting all the information to everyone. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, if you happen to be on phone only or just hearing audio, then we can touch base later on and double back and show you some of the visual stuff here. But if you're on the visual, as well, everything I show you we can make available to you. I'm going to start off with a slide deck. This is a bit of a repeat from last month, but I wanted to touch base on where we were last month versus this month and where we're going to be, and then show you a bit of where we have evolved the web interface at this point. So as discussed last time, and this has not changed, there's a roadmap that we have for this year that is multifaceted, and that there's several angles that we are working on simultaneously. We're doing this web interface. That's one arm. That is many point releases across the year as we expand that. The first target is to handle looking at the node list, that inventory that is being managed by the product, and allow the viewing, filtering, editing, creating, deleting elements from that node list. That's our first goal. There's then a release later on in the out in Q2.
Sorry, Greg. Are you sharing anything?
No problem. Is it? It's not displaying here. Okay. I have apparently not clicked the right button. I'm glad you interrupted me. Because it says on the presenter.
I'm not sure.
Here we go. There we go. Yeah, it was one more level of pushing buttons that I had not done.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Now are we displaying?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm glad you stepped in there. All right. Yeah. So this is a multifaceted approach to the year where we are proceeding down different paths of this, simultaneously, where this web interface is being developed with the point releases, as said. The second piece is that there's we're going to be providing a variety of models throughout the year that topic-based. Again, input is welcome on direction here, where we want to look at just for showing how the product can be used and delving into what exists using probably the standard MIBs that are available about how to approach different topics. And it shows how to use the product, how the product can be useful, and it's just a reference. It harkens back to that sort of model club that Mike Schmidt used to do a little while ago. And as well as for the API that we have been developing with the product. So we're going to be doing some nice work in there. The what's in, what state, as named by Mike, is the centerpiece for that. We're in at the moment with this API. If you've not used it yet, it's at the moment it's Perl based, but it's being flipped over a bit better to make it language agnostic, so that if you're a fan of Go or Python, it's going to be using JSON and using a standard technique, so that we can provide this regardless of the the language. Right now, what I said is Perl based. Or it's not at all. Doesn't need to be that way. But right now you can step in through that. You can create a session where you're talking to a server. You can peruse its node list and edit nodes, add, delete nodes, and we want to step in a bit further now and allow for the ability to peruse the the alarm summary map. What alarms are out of ground, what instances are there, be able to come at that from the orientation of, is this from, are you starting from an alarm and want to see what instances exist, or are you starting from a node and you want to see what alarm instances exist? And then once you're at that alarm instance case, we want to develop the ability to see what state it's in on its state diagram, be able to control that. You can cancel the whole alarm instance, drive it to a different state manually, or else inject a trigger at that point to force it to move on its own, as respective for whatever state it's currently in. And then now there's also the idea of being able to look at that stack of data that's led to this point for that alarm instance, so that you can ask it, to go back 3 layers and look, or go back to the previous layer. What is the data that brought me to this point? And that API will also allow you to step from, look at the neighboring instances, and in the case where you're dealing with an alarm instance that's, alarms can be related to each other, and so it may be valuable at times to be able to push data to a different alarm instance, or to have alarm instances be aware of where each other are located, what their data is. So that kind of control is coming next to this API, and so that's another piece that we're going to push forward on. So the release plan at this point, I'm looking at the next slide down, slide 3, is that our roadmap, this is unchanged, is that we are releasing the 7.1 release version of the product. This is the 64-bit version. There's 2 flavors of that. The variant is that there's an SH2 enhancement that is possible now for V3 environments, where this is United States only, where the SHA is being requested for doing the authentication, the signature element within V3 requesting. There are those that are dealing with government information that it needs to be secure, and the age of the prior choices within SNMP v3, which was the MD5 and the SHA1, are considered obsolete, understandably. And so SH2 has come along now, has been brought into SNMP v3 through an RFC that's been updated once at least. SHA3 I would not be surprised to see added next in a year or 2, but for those who are within the United States who need to do that government-related level of ensuring security, that the SHA2 now is in there. Then the web interface starts coming out in May. We have this point release, as you can see on this map here, and we have the sample alarm models coming out in June, and then later on in October. So we have a busy schedule that we're flowing through. And so there's a tremendous amount going on, and again, your input is welcome on all these things. As we got last time, as we got this time, there's a good bit to be done. Let me move on to look at the web interface.
If I
Yes?
if I if I make, I want to tell the audience one thing. As expressed in last meeting, this is a schedule we have developed based upon the input from various customers, prospects, and everything, and the intelligence what we gathered. Nothing is hard cast in stone. If there needs to be some change, something needs to come in the middle, we will go back and look at rearranging the schedule. It all depends upon what you feel comfortable with, what you think is important. Like what Mike presented, it was not on the delivery path for this year, but that's something with the prospects and other customers are requesting for. We brought it in without affecting the schedule. So I just want to give you that information. So this is not something one-sided, it is both sides. And we are looking for your input. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, thanks. Indeed, that's what else is about, getting input. So we have the web interface that's coming along. This will be in the slide deck that we'll send you after this, is that you can see the node list, you're able to add nodes, and we're able to edit nodes that are pieces that are in here. Now the slides just go only so far in showing this, so I can in a second show you the live demo. But I want to show you this that this is where we're at. This is what's coming in May, and this is all, you know, a work in development. So again, input on this is appreciated, and we can talk about the approach that's being done here and what your thoughts are, because we want a workflow that is useful, that is, you know, towards the direction we want. And while we're only dealing here with the node list so far, the same pattern is going to be repeated when we talk about the other elements that are within the NERSYN environment. So with that, let me flip over to looking at the user interface here. What I have here is a node set that we're looking at here, and the orientation of our display has been steady now for the past while. That, you know, from at the top are the major categorizations of work. The inventory is, you know, analogous to the node list. At the moment, Nerve Center likes to look at things that are objects with IP addresses. That doesn't have to be the case in the future, hence we're calling this the managed inventory and not the node list at the top. Although at the moment, the only thing in the managed inventory is the node list. So it seems kind of a little redundant, but at the moment, but that's our thinking, is that there could be things that we're managing in the future that are not, you know, nodes. Further within that breakdown, so once we get to this, the main area is the workspace. Off to the left becomes the assist to navigate within that workspace. And so here, there's the, you know, here we can break down by property group. As indicated in the upper left corner there, you can, you know, instead operate by severity or some customization. These will be added to in the future. What I'm showing right now for the left is the property group breakdown, which, as you know, is the partitioning of the node set based upon a property group categorization. You can clear this and work from just the general set and do searching within there. You can, as with the existing product, you can rearrange the columns. You can sort by them. We've been re-implementing a lot of it here to, you know, really drive a little bit nicer than the way the older product had been done. We're not just trying to repeat the older product. We're trying to provide a new user interface, which is valuable. So, you know, so the search is built right here into the user interface itself, as opposed to in the older client you had very limited searchability, and it was only on a certain set of attributes, and the name and the IP address, and that was it. But here I can do a search to say I want, based on a property group, and filter the list down for me. And just that quickly, it took that list down from over 2,000 or whatever that was, down to just this 9. Or I can take that out. Now, if I navigate into a property group, for instance, now I'm filtering it down to just this set, And if I want to look for just the V3 nodes here, I can ask for that in the V3 column, say for instance it's V3. Now it's obvious to us because there's only going to be one answer here because it's just a range of 6. But if I picked a different property group where there's a significant range, then it's going to not be as obvious what's happening. So, but here we've done a V3, it pulled that out. If I do ask for the V2s, it very quickly does that. If I clear this out again, it goes back to the full set. So we have a very quick interface here that allows for filtering down that set of nodes, and we expect that node population of servers to really enlarge once we get to the 64-bit product being the one that is in place at your sites, because it's that we're no longer then confined by the bounds, the memory limitations of a 32-bit process. The 64-bit process is going to allow for a significant increase to the node list. So yeah, I would expect large numbers of devices, and therefore the need for being able to filter down into here. All right, so as I said, there's the ability to search in here based upon different categories, far beyond what was possible before. With so here I just searched on Greg, and that quickly it found the one node, which happens to be my notebook in here. And this is being the means to find your way around in here. We've really concentrated on trying to make this straightforward and efficient. If I go back to my group here, let me show you the add interface. This is again analogous to the existing product, but in here what we're doing is we're allowing for the manual entry of a node. The next version of the product is separating the idea of name from host name, so that you can call it like Greg's notebook, but its host name is something different yet. So separation of that field allows for that kind of separation, where in the past we've seen customer lists where they've named things after hosts, or sometimes they've named things as they wish to refer to the device, but yet the host name is different, and there's that struggle of trying to use that single name attribute for both roles. Where here we've just separated it out. You don't have to provide the host name, but if you do, it can be used. Like if I type in, I'll do a look up here to demonstrate part of the functionality. Let's say I want to add AT&T's website as a node. I'm just going to put it in the ICMP group. I can use this IP lookup feature here to pull in the addresses. If I'm looking at IPv6 addresses, I can look for those. This is live, by the way. So here I'm going to select both. I want to pull all of them across and put them into my node list. And so now adding a node for AT&T into my ICMP group. What's already accomplished here is that this is dynamic. So as soon as I press the save and come out of here, my group membership jumps up to 7. And the node's added in there right away. I can, and I've got some of the controls. This looks familiar to the old client, where I can get in here and do a right-click on the device and do some of the operations. Delete certainly, but manage, unmanage, and do some of the basic operations. I can set the version quickly here. I can copy or can clone the node, and clone is it doesn't provide me a name because I'm going to give it a new name, but otherwise does a deep copy and provides all the attributes as they were in the original, which is fantastic. And I can rename nodes with what's in there already. I can go in there and I can, if I change this, change the name of the node, it's instantaneous. I save it up here on the top bar here. I get out, and the name is changed right away. And I can change the property groups, or if, as dynamically in the background, if something within the system, because there's the ability to change the property group within the product, if something comes in there and changes the property group, if I go back to my AT&T node here and puts it into the nerve center group for some reason, then and I save this over here, that again, this moves over to that property group. Once I click out of here, you'll see that the membership for the ICMP has gone back to 6, the nerve center group's gone up to 2, and I click on here, I've got my AT&T over here. So again, it's providing that functionality for the basic management of the node list. So again, what we're doing here is that again the top horizontal is the main work category. The left-hand edge is the filtering or the controls or selections, and the center stage is the work area. I repeat that when we get into the nodes themselves. Like I open up Greg's notebook here. What we have is a set of tabs on the left. So what we're able to show on the left is the set of controls that can be done against the workspace. So the two are lit up right now because we're looking at two aspects of the node, the basic and the SNMP info. Now here's where we're looking for input a bit, is that we have these icons here on the left, and we are looking for a bit of way to label them. What is a good way to label SNMP? I mean, sure, I can add the letters SNMP, but I do not. But we're looking for additional tags here. But I can replace that widget on the left with another one of the selections here. So I can look at the trace attributes, or I can say I want to look at the ICMP attributes. So for each of these, this is analogous to that property page tabbing mechanism that's in the old client, and this is allowing you to view and set the attributes for each piece. As you make changes, you can save them and stay here. So I can change, for instance, the if I go to my SNMP, back to my SNMP tab, I could say I want to set this to V1. Now it's going to use the V1 information in here. And I can save that, and it stays on the same node. Maybe I change my mind. I say, wait a minute, no, I have a V3 node. And now what's great is now it shows you the V3 configuration, which hadn't been set up here, so everything's blank. And I can go ahead and save that. As it's a V2 or V3 node, I can check whether I want to use get bulk. And then here's a case we're expanding the user interface from before, where in the world of get bulk within SNMP, very exciting. There's the get bulk feature allows you to retrieve a number of rows, and one of the attributes of the get bulk operation is how many rows do you want to get? What's the max that you want to retrieve? This is actually settable in Nerve Center, but not via the user interface, which is it never found its way onto the old user interface. So here we've brought that out and put that here, so you can say how many rows you wish to retrieve at a time. But anyway, what's nice here is that the user interface adapts to what you're asking for. So when we switch here back to V1, it redraws. It takes away the V3 attributes, since they're not important to show right then, and puts them in the back, but presents you with the V1, V2 information, for instance. So, and this, we have this set up to show, some of the more recent additions to the product, where you can define your own attributes and add them in here. I was sitting here a bit earlier with my notebook, adding in that it's a notebook that's ASUS, that's got Windows 10. I can keep adding pieces to it. What Office software do I have on here? And it happens to be, Microsoft Office 2016 or something like that. So I can just add an attribute in here, and it puts that into the node list and hangs on to it, this is accessible via Perl, either internally or externally now as well, starting in version 6.2, I think, and repeated since then, so that from within Perl you can be adding and removing and browsing the attributes on a node. This is a quality of that we'd like to attach to the other objects in here. When we're talking about the other assets that make up Nerve Center, your poles and trap masks, alarms, there's no reason why that it shouldn't be the exact same ability. That being able to add attributes to a running trap mask or alarm instance or an alarm itself is something that from within the way the operations work, this could be valuable to be able to just push attributes, on the fly, see, edit the data that's in there, so that you can have an association. An alarm instance could, create an attribute on the fly for itself, save it, and then refer back to it. So, several states later. All right. So, what I want you to take away from this is this motif of how we're looking at the data is something that we're going to probably then be repeating. So we can imagine in the future we'll be having a trap, and it's attributes come through in the same sort of presentation. Again, where you can have a list. If I back out here, oh, I'm not going to save my changes. If I step back out here, so my, whereas we have a trap mask list or a poll list or an alarm list or an alarm summary, even farther out when we're talking about what comes over into this user interface, that again, we're going to provide the means of looking at the data, allow you to drill into it, and provide the controls over on the left for which aspect of that object, that data object, are we manipulating, and then the controls within that for, from within that context of looking at the object, what can you control, see, and manipulate. So that is the overall direction of this. So the feedback we're looking for is anything from the holistic viewpoint of is this something that works well for the way that you want to approach using the product, down to when we're actually doing a manipulation here, and at the moment we're dealing with nodes, but is this approach valuable? We find that to flood the screen with all the attributes of, say, a node or a poll later on is too much data. To be able to segment it and provide pieces of it at a time, and allow you to be able to control what you're looking at on the screen at a time is useful. So again, we can show this to you later on if you want to play with it yourself here, and give feedback based upon that. Though any suggestions now and then are welcome. Any thoughts?
Looks pretty good so far.
Okay, all right. All right, everyone seems very quiet here. So like I said, you're welcome to schedule reviews with us, and that if you want to get on here and talk about this and work with it, there's often quite a bit of complexity in the dynamic nature of dealing with something, and playing with it yourself is something that allows you to get into that role. And can I really, if I'm able to not just look at it in a PowerPoint slide or watch somebody play with it on a screen, but if I can toy with it with myself, to see if it fits, to see if the shoe fits is really what we're hoping that you'll find the time to take on looking at just a little bit, because we want this to work for you in the end. We're doing this because we need to replace the product. We want this to
send out a
work
link
for you,
and send out a link and login information, I'm happy to poke at it a bit.
Okay, there we go. See, we really are doing this because we want this to work for you. We want this to be a valuable tool that allows you to interact with the Nerve Center and Trap Center product. Oh, I haven't mentioned Trap Center today. I'm sorry. The Trap Center variant is exactly this. It is it's the same thing. It's in when we are down the road farther, all those pieces that we associate as being Trap Center-ish within Nerve Center will be part of this. So the whole trap forwarding will be in here as well. And I cannot wait to get to the point where in several point releases down the road, we're showing you live data of what's happening with its operations. That there's the potential that our server for a long time has been pulling in data, not just about the states, but it keeps data about how many times it's done operations against nodes and what the response times are, and it just hasn't been showable. It's not at all been easily to produce that onto user interfaces. And here we have a marvelous chance to get into graphs and so on, to come up to show the amount of interaction happening between Nerve Center and a product, the amount of event traffic coming, the nature of that event traffic. That there's some marvelous potentials coming up. So I think that when we're talking about these nodes here, that this, for the panels such as what we've had over here with this, the initial 9 is going to grow to be something beyond that when start being able to look at the live data that's happening, or the the alarm instances that are going on, and the movement of that. So really, I'm very excited by this, and there is a lot to be excited about this, because the maintenance of the old applications was horrific, to be honest with you, and this is just such a huge, fresh thing to have happen. I'm very energized by this. So, congrats to the team that's doing this sincerely. And if you want to come and play with this and work with us, let us know, and we will really welcome that input.
Yeah, certainly. One question, since there is a web interface and we're now managing the nodes, or theoretically going to be managing those through a web interface, is there going to be a web API to input node lists?
Yes, there is. There's, well, that API I mentioned earlier will allow for, there's two layers to this, let's say. There is a RESTful API coming that allows you to speak to the web service.
Mm-hmm.
There is also, separate from that, the Nerve Center API, which is script-based, which, within Perl or Python,
Mm-hmm.
which allows you to speak, into the system as well. So there's two answers to the question.
Well, we're using the command line based Perl based right now, or what there is available to input nodes through the command line. But
right, and
I'm hoping for right now we're doing that through a script that is called from. So we're jumping through multiple layers, but initially the requests for us are coming in through the web. So if we could come directly in through the web, that would be.
There we go.
Yay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that's valuable. That's valuable. Yeah, right now, for instance, we're dealing with a customer who has spreadsheets that they're able to generate from other sources of nodes that they want to have managed. And then that spreadsheet arrives, and is given to the script. They invoke a script against the spreadsheet. The script is tailored to know how to parse and what to look for in that spreadsheet, and uses the Perl API as it is right now to insert those nodes or find the node if it exists and edit it and save it. So there's that kind of work is potential now. But I understand the tremendous value of being able to using a RESTful API against the service, indicate here, I wish to add, a node. I want to add a poll. I want to add an alarm instance, that kind of thing. There's tremendous value in that.
Okay, well, I have to jump off for another call, gentlemen. It has been excellent so far. Sorry to miss the remainder of your presentation, but I will talk to you guys later.
Thanks, James. And we will be sending out the meeting notes and everything after this call.
Certainly. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay. All right, so my last part, as mentioned by Ranga, this about almost an hour ago, I think, probably, was that, where are we going to be in a month? Where are we going to be in 2 months? I'm going to refer you back to that roadmap, because that is our driving means for this year. And as Ranga indicated, it's all soft. So if you have interests, if you have questions, concerns, or thoughts, let us know. Because not only this web interface, but the whole direction of things is, fungible. So your feedback is certainly welcome. So Ranga, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Manjul and Dex, any other questions, points you have to cover? Okay, so Manjul and Dex has been very calm. So go ahead.
Oh, I was having trouble with my mute button. No, I got nothing. It's unbelievable progress. And just to let you guys know, I got the early release of 7.1 to try in our lab. I just got to go try it out later this week. I haven't had a breathing moment to try it out yet.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thanks for the feedback. Do you also want, like James asked, do you also want to have early access to the web interface modules to play with?
I would love to try it out, but I need to basically I need to find time. That's the issue with,
so,
and it's an issue with everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So let me shoot you guys an email as to when I'll have breathing moment to try it out.
Wonderful. Well, the whole idea is to not to kind of barge into your time and disturb your workflow, but also at the same time get your feedback. That's why we are doing an online demo session as well and providing recorded information as well as links to get feedback, to make you and to give the opportunity for the customers to further set the direction of Nerve Center. Okay, with that, um, I guess we have nothing else. We look forward for the next month's customer council meeting. I'll send across meeting notes and information like last time. Thank you everyone for your time this morning to participate in the conference, this customer service call, council call. Please let us know if you have any questions in offline. You can reach out to me, Mike, Greg, anyone for that matter. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.